It's the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Hello, once again, everybody. This is Bob Smith, and welcome to the Outdated Entertainment Hour. I've been waiting a long time to do this one. Our guest is going to be Mr. Jon Pine, the writer and journalist who has written film reviews in both New York and Florida. You may have read his work on a variety of websites, and we're going to look at 10 vastly underrated comedy films. So get ready for a little mirth on this one. We're going to take a quick break. You're going to listen to the words of a famous rock and roller. And then let's enjoy famous comedy memories with Jon Pine. And we'll be back in just a couple of seconds. Get yourself a nice libation, a beverage, tasty snack. Come on back. I promise you a good time.
Hi, everybody. This is Joe Walsh. One thing I do when I'm not playing rock and roll is get on the air as an amateur radio operator. Also called ham radio, is a communication service provided by ordinary people just like you and me. Ham radio operators are everywhere, in your city, your area, your neighborhood, in any country you go to. We have a national emergency communication system in place 24/7, 365. In case of natural or man-made disasters, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, you name it, we're there. Find out more about amateur radio at arrl.org/whatishamradio. See you on the air.
This show's been a long time coming, and it's got a guest on it who I consider one of my best friends on the planet. But he's also a learned person and perfect for this particular show. Our guest is a journalist, writer. He's done a lot. He's worked both in Florida and in New York State as a film critic and just a general journalist for newspapers, magazines, and on the web. His name is Jon Pine. You know him from the Wrestling Hour, but now here's his debut on the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Jon, great to have you here finally.
I am happy to be here. Looking forward to it all week.
Well, this is a subject that's near and dear to our hearts, comedy films.
Right.
And I am still of the opinion that if you want to get me into a movie theater, it's got to be a comedy. Do you prefer this genre, or is it just, you're such a film fan and such a film maven. What do you prefer when you say, oh, it's a new movie's out? What makes you go out and see a new film?
I do like comedies. I like a little bit of everything. I think that, a lot of shows now, that's kind of where all the money is right now, is these streaming, mini, what do you call them? Mini,
well, they used to be called miniseries.
Yeah, they are kind of miniseries, limited series, miniseries. That kind
limited is, that's it. Yeah.
Kind of takes a movie and stretches it to 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 episodes. And the ones that I tend to like are the ones that, you can have a laugh or two in there, but still have some drama in with it. And I know that comedies are harder to make. Actors say they're harder on them. It's harder to act in a comedy than it is to act in a drama. And I guess you can kind of teach drama, but you can't teach funny, I guess is the way that goes. So, but yeah, I like a little bit of everything, and over the years I've seen a ton of stuff. Excuse me. When I was a kid, I got into movies early. My brother and I actually bought a 16 millimeter projector out of the old Times Union want ad section. And I got onto a mailing list with the library in Catskill for 16 millimeter films. And it was like a big circuit from around the state. I made a list of the films that I wanted to see. And then they would call me when they were ready in Catskill. I'd drive down to Catskill, pick them up, and thread them through the 16 millimeter projector. And my friends and I would watch these films.
By the way, point of reference for our listeners, Catskill is Catskill, New York, in Greene County in New York State. We just want to fill you in on what we're talking about here.
Yes. So, and Bob and I basically probably grew up at the same movie theater, the one screen that turned into a duplex Catskill theater. And that was about 30 miles from my house. So that was it was an excursion to go to the movies. A little closer for you. You could probably take your bike or walk there, but for me,
I walked there all the time. I walked.
Yeah.
I went to the community theater in Catskill, New York, on Main Street. I don't know. I think it's still there, but I'm not sure. But I will say this: the 50-cent matinee when I was a child, I went all the time. Every weekend, my brother and I and maybe a gaggle of friends would go because we could afford it. You didn't even have to think about it. My parents would give us $1 sometimes. We'd both go to movies. There'd be double or triple features sometimes. And I always joke about this. Whoever booked the theater at the community theater, it was one screen back then. I don't think they had a clue as to what they were booking for Saturday matinees. If they could afford it cheaply, they would show it. Sometimes it'd be a Three Stooge film. Sometimes it'd be an animated feature. Other times they'd have these sadist slasher movies because I guess they called it a horror movie. And not all horror movies were like Dracula and Frankenstein. These were these gory European sadism romps. I don't know how else to put it. And there's a gaggle of 11-year-old kids watching it going, ew, or going, yeah, because all young boys love gore. Even I enjoyed it when I was stupid and young. But I have nothing but great memories and memories of that soda machine that with a cup would plop down, and for 10 to 15 cents, you could have an apple drink or a grape drink. And then, of course, there were the milkshake candy bars behind the counter. I preferred milkshake, if you remember those. Do you remember those?
Yeah, well, they were probably like 20 cents, right? Or 15 cents, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those were fun times. I didn't go as often as you because it meant they had to catch a ride and, that sort of thing. So when I got older, of course, and had my own transportation, I went more often. And sometimes we'd skip across the river to the Hudson side, and they sometimes had different movies. So we had usually 4 films to choose from by then. Kids today have no idea what their multiplexes.
They have no idea. We used to have to wait to see first-run films a lot. Or we'd never see them at all because they'd never come to our city.
Right, yeah.
Particularly if they were blockbusters. I remember the community rarely got the hottest, newest film. They didn't have the capacity.
Right.
Even though for a long time it was a 2-floor theater with a balcony.
Right.
And we all know what the balcony got used for with the teenagers, but that's another ball of wax. But to make matters clear, for instance, I do remember seeing Star Wars in 76 at the community theater. I don't know why it was in Catskill in 76, but I did see it. I believe that was the year. Either it was 77, 78. Do you remember the year the original Star Wars?
No, but that's, probably 77, 78. And we probably trekked all the way up to Albany to see that one because it was, more choices for theaters up there. But I wasn't one of those guys that had to see it the day it opened. And I wasn't one of those. I had friends who went to see it 13, 14, 15 times. I thought it was a fun movie, but I was not, I was not obsessed like a lot of my friends
Same
were.
here. I think it's a classic, but again, I wouldn't need to see it more than once. I saw it. But, here's the thing that John and I probably experienced. I experienced this. I wonder if you did. Film breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they were more than a little common. You'd be sitting there watching the film, and the film would snap in the projector. You'd have the house lights would come up, and you'd have to wait for them to splice the film back together and empty projector back on. Later in life, I actually worked at the Lyceum Theater in Red Hook, New York, and I learned how to do all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It just it was a 6-month in between things job, and I learned a lot. I really learned a lot. I was there when the theater went from a 1 screen to a 2 screen, and I helped put all the new stuff in the paneling on the walls. It was like the egg crate stuff, and learning about how the projections worked.
Was that?
Here's the amazing thing: the Lyceum Theater had I swear to God, this is true. The big platters, they wouldn't put the film spools on the projector itself anymore. They used these large platters that were kind of like an 8-track tape. They would rewind themselves into the next,
Right.
segment.
Right.
Here's the amazing thing. The projector itself, I believe, was from the 1930s. And it still worked.
Yeah.
And why would you replace it if it works?
Right.
So, again, this is just on the cusp of the digital age moving in, but these are great memories I had of working in a theater like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Certain films it couldn't be shown in certain theaters because they weren't printed in that format or size or whatever. There were a bunch. I used to teach film in high school, and we went through all the different formats, especially when they tried to get wider screen films. And there's one format where the film is actually turned on its side. So instead of the width being the narrow part of the film, it was the length. But you had to have a special projector, and if you didn't, you just didn't get that film because that was the only format it was in. So it's kind of interesting to go back and see that history. But anyway, probably a comedy that we both saw at the Catskill Theater was Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. I'm sure of that. That was an experience. That was a lot of fun. So now that we're talking about comedies, you and I are fans of obscure comedies that are kind of silly, off the radar. Probably didn't do well at the box office, or maybe they did and just disappeared quickly. But we kind of have an affinity for silliness and craziness, so we have a list of a few that we wanted to talk about. Why don't you go first? What's first on your list?
Well, my list is in no particular order. And again, these are underrated comedies. Some of them got wide distribution, some didn't. And the first one I want to bring up is a criminally ignored film from a great filmmaker and a really talented fellow named Stanley Tucci, who directed The Imposters in 1988. Excuse me, 1998. I want to get that correct. Listen to the stars in this thing. For some reason, Tucci's independent films always had giant casts of people like Oliver Platt, Tucci himself, Steve Buscemi, Billy Connolly, Alfred Molina, Tony Shalhoub, Lily Taylor, Campbell Scott. The list keeps going. And it's basically a period piece about a pair of out-of-work actors who insult a stage actor in a bar, run away from them, and end up on a cruise ship. Don't ask. It's not even important. And, they're stowaways on an ocean liner, and it's been booked, of course, by the very same actor they're trying to get away from. And mayhem ensues, including a little spy undercurrent. And fans of everyone from the Three Stooges to radio comedies, because it's a period piece set around probably the 30s or 40s. They don't specifically say when. It is hilarious.
Absolutely.
It's I don't know anybody who's seen it. And the critics pretty much savaged it. I went back in time and looked up a lot of reviews for it. They said it was plotting, it was slow, it was obvious, blah, 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 blah. I looked at it as a laugh-a-minute, totally original comedy. The first segment alone during the opening credits is worth seeing the entire film. If you remember that opening where they're in a park and they start to fight with each other.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, you should really enjoy this. They stream it on Prime Video for free right now as we're speaking. It's sometimes it's cost for these things. But as I researched this, it was free on Amazon Prime Video. Either way, DVD, however you get to see it, see The Imposters. It's one of our favorite films here in this homestead. How do you feel about that one?
Oh, I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, with Oliver Platt in a dress, it's worth the price of admission just to see that. And it was Stanley Tucci, was it him or Stanley Tucci that's drinking out of the giant martini glass?
Oh, Stanley Tucci, yeah. He said, give me that one. Because, they were starving. They portrayed out-of-work actors who were constantly scheming to get a gig or some free food off somebody. The bakery scene is a hilarious one. I mean, it goes on and on and on with great sight gags. Yeah. There's a bit with some falling luggage that goes on for about 90 seconds that had me on the floor because it was just so preposterous. Billy Connolly is a hilarious comic actor who has never been better than he is. And it just goes on and on. If you're looking for a really good 90-minute time, it's The Imposters. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. All
right, give me one, Jackson. 8 to the bar. What do you got for us here?
This one is extremely obscure. In fact, it hasn't been on DVD until just recently. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it on VHS too. It's one that I thought you and I saw together with our mutual friend John Griffin, but maybe you weren't part of that viewing. The name alone, it makes you laugh. It's called Nice Girls Don't Explode. Kind of an interesting choice of casting. Barbara Harris, and you may know her from, actually, she was a co-founder of Second City Chicago with her husband, Paul Sills. And she came up along with Ed Asner, Mike Nichols, and Elaine May in that comedy troupe. But you may know her. Probably her biggest role is she was the mom on Freaky Friday when Jodie Foster was the daughter, and they switch places. It's a Disney classic. But anyway, she's kind of ditzy, but very funny. And she plays this really overprotective mom. And her daughter's name is April Flowers. And she's so overprotective that she has got her daughter convinced that when she gets aroused with a young suitor, that she could possibly combust, burn up in flames. So the way she convinces her daughter that this is the case is she hires a guy played by Wallace Shawn, who's kind of a technomaniac, and he supplies her with explosives that can be operated remotely. And she follows her daughter around on dates and to school and things like that, and plants these explosives around her. And whenever she gets a little too chummy with a boy, she sets them off. So she's got her daughter convinced that she's actually going to, self-destruct. It's pretty funny and silly, and just based around that premise, it's a laugh riot. Seeing Barbara Harris in it adds to the hilarity. It's just very low budget, but it's filmed well. It's written pretty well, and one of the quotes is, "You're a very special girl who will have very special problems if you don't stay away from boys." And packing protection for this girl means having a little fire extinguisher in her purse when she goes out on a date. But she does have a boy that's been interested in her since they were little kids. And finally, he smells a rat, and he's convinced that this whole thing is made up. So it takes a little convincing to get her to believe that she's not combustible. But I don't want to give away any of the rest of it. It's just a crazy scenario, a very strange concept, but a laugh every 5 minutes at least. And you can find it now. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but like I said, you can get the DVD through Amazon, or you can get VHS.
Who was watching VHS in 2025?
Yeah, well, the only copy I had of it for a very long time was on VHS.
Well, yeah,
but now you can get the DVD if you want to.
I keep talking at home here. I have a giant stack of wonderful VHS tapes, including myself on television, other stuff that's very, very rare. And I do have the card that you can convert them into digital files. Why doesn't people do it when they buy the card? Here's why. You have to do it in real time, the VHS time. Like, it's not like a digital. We're so spoiled now. We have one digital file, we copy it into another source, and it's done. Not with VHS. You have to do it in real time. Mm-hmm. And it's why I haven't done it. And I have a whole treasure trove of old classic stuff I would love to digitize. It just takes forever. Yeah. Well, maybe when I retire, I'll get around to that. But for right now, I just don't have the time to budget to do it. But you know what? I did not see that film. I was not amongst the bunch that went to the theater, but now I wish I had. We'll go to 1987 now. A movie that you and I saw at your apartment in Florida. He lives in Florida now, folks. And it's Amazon Women on the Moon, which is available virtually anywhere you stream or find video. It's, starting with the Groove Tube in the early 70s, the Ken Shapiro film, there was a long line of movies that were simply a collection of comedy sketches. There's a ton of them, one called Cracking Up. It was a whole mess of these, and how do I put it? Youth-oriented comedies that were like moved from one thing to another.
Kentucky Fried Movie was one.
Kentucky Fried Movie. That's an excellent point. Yeah, I enjoy that one too. The film takes aim at cheesy sci-fi Saturday morning matinees that you would go see, like we were talking about before. Problems with TV remote controls, a spoof of those Playboy Playmate videos they used to sell. But my favorite bit there, including a lot of slapstick, but my favorite bit is about a man's memorial service that morphs into a comedy roast. And it's a bunch of old school comedians like Steve Allen and Rip Taylor and Charlie Callis. And slappy white, and the jokes are so funny, and the premise is so, for its time, daring.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you were dying as bad as I was watching that particular scene. You can stream it on Amazon. A shocking list of A-list actors includes Arsenio Hall, Michelle Pfeiffer, Peter Horton, Rosanna Arquette, Griffin Dunn, Steve Forrest, Henry Silva, bunch of oddballs, names and faces you may have seen but can't place, but they're all in that movie. Amazon Women in the Mood. If you want to laugh, shut your brain off and watch it because it's a hoot.
And the name comes from one of the sketches that's kind of recurs throughout the film too, right? There was one
Yeah,
of
it
those
was based on
cheesy
a
50s sci-fi films,
right, like a
Amazon
Saturday
Women are
matinee
on.
film. Yeah, so they named the entire film that, and there's this running thread. They keep going back to Amazon Women in the Moon throughout the thing. Actually, I forgot the whole film is like switching channels on a TV is what it looks like.
Right.
Like you'll be in the middle of a sketch, you'll see, bzz, and then another thing will pop up. So you have to remember old school remote controls and black and white TVs for a lot of this stuff because that's what it's based on. And
Is that the one where the rocket ship's got like office furniture in it instead of
oh yeah, yeah.
instead of
It's just
space age stuff? Is just office furniture from the 50s, rolling chairs and desks and
well, there's all kinds of sketches. I think Arsenio starts it with just a bit. Ain't no Thelma here. He's getting the same phone call over and wrecking his house in the interim. It's just silliness, and it's what we're seeing. I think you'll laugh your butt off. And speaking of butts, but John, what you got for me?
Well, the next one is kind of a classic, but it's hard to find. And again, it's one of those that wasn't on DVD for a very long time. Right now, I think the only place you can get it is rental, or you can purchase it from Amazon Prime. It's called The In-Laws. It's a classic pairing of Alan Arkin and Peter Falk, who are so great together, have such great comedy chemistry that just seeing them riff is hilarious. But it's also got a very funny and strange kind of a setup. It starts with the burglary of an armored car, and the burglars aren't interested in the cash. They're looking for these printing plates that are printing plates for printing up U.S. currency. And Alan Arkin is just a nebbishy kind of dentist in New York, and it turns out that his daughter is marrying Peter Falk's son in the film, and Peter Falk is possibly or may not be in the CIA. So he's invited over to dinner a few days before the wedding, and he tells some really outlandish stories. And Alan Arkin's character is called Sheldon Cornpet, which is a great name. But anyway, Sheldon is just very suspicious of this guy, very skeptical that he is who he is, and the stories are outrageous and unbelievable. He gets kind of roped into this crazy scenario because when Peter Falk, whose name is Vince Ricardo, is over for dinner, he, for some reason, which is kind of a plot mistake, but it had to be done to make it work. He leaves one of the printing plates in the basement of their house. And then the next day, the idea with these plates, first of all, is to sell them to this Central American syndicate. And they've gotten plates from other countries in Europe, and they're going to print up a whole bunch of money and try to destabilize the world economy and just wreak havoc all over the place. The next day, Vince drops by Sheldon's office, and he's in the middle of working on one of his patients. And Vince says, I just need you to do me this small favor. It'll take you less than a half an hour. I can't do it myself, but you can do it. So he's got to break into Vince's office and steal this black bag from a safe in the office. He's the only one that can do it. And Vince has got him convinced that it's no big deal. But anyway, he's coming out of the office with the bag, and these burglars are in there trying to shoot him. So he jumps out a window, down a fire escape. People are shooting at him and chasing him, and they end up in a cab. They're chasing people around the city, and it's lots of crazy chase scenes and that sort of thing. His wife, Sheldon's wife, finds the plate by accident in the basement, doesn't know what it is or what to do with it, decides to bring it to her bank. And her bank manager determines that it's one of the plates from the robbery that's all over the news. And now they're in big trouble because now Sheldon is wanted by federal agents for, possibly being involved in this robbery. So now he's got to go on the run. And so he calls Vince and says, "Hey, what am I going to do here?" And Vince says, "Well, we'll just meet me at the airport. We're going to fly to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and we'll get this all worked out." Well, on the plane, if they find out that no, they're not headed to Scranton, Pennsylvania, they're over water, and they're headed to Central America. So again, they're on this crazy chase. Now it's international, and just Sheldon is this just kind of straight guy, and Peter Falk is Peter Falk from the Columbo character. He's just like that. And he's just, trying to convince Shelley that, this is no big deal. Happens all the time. I'll get it all straightened out. And Sheldon is getting more and more neurotic and anxious as the time goes on. And there's just a lot of slapsticky, fun chase scene kind of stuff. When they land in Central America, for example, they get off the plane. They're supposed to meet a corrupt guy from the government. And as they step off the plane to meet this guy, the guy gets shot. So now they have to try to get to the guy's car. Just trying to get to the car is hilarious because Vince is trying to convince Shelley to zigzag as he's running to the car so it makes it harder for these snipers to shoot him. So he's yelling at him, "Serpentine, Shelley, serpentine," and he's giving the little wiggle sign with his hands, and meanwhile the bullets are flying all around them, and Sheldon's getting more and more anxious and upset, and finally get in the car and they take off. So I'm going to leave it there as far as the plot goes, but just the two of these guys working together, lightning in a bottle when the two of those guys get together as far as comedy goes. And there's some great writing and some great dialogue between them that's pretty funny. And when they get to Central America, they meet the general who's in charge of this scheme, and he's off his rocker nuts. So that adds to the humor and the comedy. And then it all ends well. It is a comedy, so it ends on an up note, and I won't tell you how. But like I said, I think you can rent it for about $3, $3.50 on Prime. So it's well worth the money. If you want to buy it, I think it's around $10. It's a good film to have in your collection because you will return to it again and again. So there you go.
It's an unlikely pairing that does comic wonder in that one. I remember seeing that at a drive-in theater when it was a new film, and it was hilarious. And it kind of reminds me of the film that De Niro and Charles Grodin did together. And you wouldn't think they would be a laugh riot together, but they absolutely were.
Midnight Run.
Midnight Run, that's right. And there's another one that could end up on this list because, as time passes, people forget about these movies.
Right.
And I believe The In-Laws was pretty much a hit when it came out. They did good box office. But I don't hear, this was a good choice on your part because I don't hear people discussing it a whole lot these days.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those that sticks with you. And they used to show it, on Saturday afternoon TV 40 years ago, but then it just sort of disappeared. So I made sure that I had to have my own copy of it because I knew I was going to want to watch it again and again over the years. It's one that I pull out, every 5 or 6 years just because it stays fresh. The laughs are fresh. The film and the surroundings and the scenario might be a little dated, but the two of those guys, when you got magic in a bottle like that, it's always funny. You can watch that movie 100 years from now and you're going to laugh just as hard.
And then there's the films that you're flipping channels. Even in today's era, you're looking for something to watch, or you're going down your program guide and you see something's on and you click on it. And you didn't think you were going to watch it, but you end up watching it. This next one is on that list for me. It's from 1960. It's called Wake Me When It's Over. The star of the film ostensibly is Dick Shawn, but also in the cast are Ernie Kovacs, Jack Warden, Don Knotts, and other names you recognize. The plot, this is a strange 1960 budgeted major studio film. I don't know which studio did it, but it had that music, the orchestral music background and all that other stuff. But here's what the film's about. Gus Brubaker, who's played by Dick Shawn, has been drafted back into military service due to a clerical error, right? So he finds himself deployed to a little Japanese island where everybody's bored to death. There's nothing going on in this Japanese island. So Gus decides to build a hotel and hire locals to run the place. That's basically the film. It's a big budget. Like I said, the soundtrack You could tell that producers thought this was going to be big. It wasn't, but it's got a lot of laughs, and I found it very strange and completely entertaining. Thanks to you got Ernie Kovacs and Dick Shawn. I mean, come on, it's like a lot of military based films you would have seen in that era, but this one was really different, and you could tell it had a huge budget. I just don't know anybody you ever heard of. Wake Me When It's Over.
I've heard the name of the film, but I don't think I've ever seen it. It sounds like exactly as you describe it. Yeah, that a lot of films are made and they pour lots of money into it, but you just don't know if the thing is going to sell tickets. You just don't know until you know. And there's a lot of films out there that were millions of dollars to make and made nothing at the box office.
Well, this one's so obscure. I had never heard of it, and I got hooked into it because I'm a big Kovacs guy. There's another thing, folks. It's all over streaming video. A lot of Ernie Kovacs show video, find it. A lot of it will look dated, but that's not the point. Ernie Kovacs was the first person to do visual comedy on television, like little blackout sketches and stuff like that. Characters who didn't speak, that type of thing. He was a genius, funny as all get out. And Ernie Kovacs, if you can find the stuff, I think it's on Tubi and those type of stations, get it. It's you will thank me. Ernie Kovacs, one of the great innovators in TV history. But anyway, I kept watching it because Kovacs was in it. But basically, I kept watching it because this was this strange, odd, little quirky comedy that happened to have a big budget and a big-time soundtrack that somehow escaped everybody. So I give it, I'd say 4 out of 5 stars and well worth checking out. I can't stop thinking about it because it was so weird. You hear that plot? That's strange.
Yeah.
So in any event, there's my pick for number 3. What do you got on your list to tease me with now?
This one I know is a hit in your household. And I got to start by a little personal story. I actually met this comic actor when I first moved to Florida. I worked down in Stuart, Florida. Burt Reynolds was very popular in the area. He had a dinner theater. And he also, at the time that I moved here in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, he had a television show that was called BL Striker. And he filmed it all around the area. So one of the episodes of BL Striker, I was on set just to write about it. And the actor that I'm talking about, comic actor that I'm talking about, was a guest on the show that week. And the guy I'm talking about is Dom DeLuise. So it was interesting for me to talk to him and interview him and ask him some questions. And he was very gracious and funny with me. And so that's one of the highlights of my life, was to meet and talk with him. So this film, Fatso, was filmed in 1980, and it was directed by Anne Bancroft, lovely wife of Mel Brooks, who is Italian and who grew up apparently in the area where this film was shot. It's a comedy, but it's also got a serious side to it. It kind of touches on the emotional connection that some people, I'm one of them, has with food. And, I grew up with an Italian mother and an Italian grandmother. And if you weren't feeling well, the solution was, try to eat this and you'll feel better. That was the way my mother dealt with us. And of course, she is very round, and I have become very round because of that. So anyway, this film handles the overweight situation in a very hilarious manner. From the very beginning, you see scenes of Dominic, which is the character Dom DeLuise plays as a kid, and he's crying. And what does his mother do? His mother stuffs a cannoli in his mouth to get him to stop crying. And, as the child gets older, we see more of that. Anne Bancroft plays Antoinette, his sister. And his sister and her family live downstairs. And Dom and his brother Frankie, who's played by Ron Carey, who many of you probably know from Barney Miller television show. Dom and Frankie live upstairs. Dom and his sister, Antoinette, they run a card shop. The first major scene is the death of their cousin, a very, very large cousin, Sal, who requires a huge casket because he's just overeaten and died young because of how overweight he is. So Antoinette sees this as a problem for Dominic, and she tries to get him to lose weight, makes an appointment with him with a diet doctor, tries very hard to get him to go and see that diet doctor, which he eventually does. But it's become very difficult for him to stick to his diet. He's also It's very funny. He's also a member of a group called the Chubby Checkers, which is kind of like Weight Watchers. You have a buddy that you can call if you feel like eating. You call these Chubby Checkers, and they'll come and check on you and talk you down from your hunger attack. Hopefully, keep you on your diet. I mean, it's just right for comedy. Whenever you see a situation like that, so he meets a beautiful woman named Lydia, who's played by Candace Azara. She works in a gift shop around the corner from him. And he's smitten, she's smitten, but he's a little embarrassed about his weight and he's a little bit shy. So he's trying to lose weight, if not for himself, for this possible shot at romance. But he's losing his battle with weight loss. And I understand that. I've tried to lose weight many times, and I understand what it's like to get fed up and just go off your diet in a big way. But there's a hilarious scene where he has locked up the cabinets and all the food and given the key to the lock to his brother, Frankie. Frankie wears the key around his neck at night, and he says, "Frankie, whatever I say, no matter how hard I ask, don't give me that key."
All right, don't reveal anymore. That's enough.
Okay.
Because what happens after that is one of the funniest scenes in the film, if not an entire decade of comedy films. It is classic.
And just remember this key phrase: "Get the honey, Junior," and you'll remember why that phrase alone is hilarious. Tom DeLuise is just hilarious, but he's also got a very emotive face. So when you see him, you can empathize with him as well. He's got that kind of a way about him. Again, it has its ups and downs, but it is a comedy and it ends on an up note. So you won't be sorry. It's available for rent or for purchase from Amazon Prime. Fatso, 1980.
I did see it crop up on HBO about 6 months ago, or HBO Max too, or Max, what they call Max. I don't know if they still have rights to it. You may want to check the film lineup and see if maybe it's there still. I don't know this, but it was there a little while ago, several months ago. As for the film myself, I like it, but I only give it about 3.5 stars personally, only because of Anne Bancroft. I thought her directorial, I think it was her directorial debut, and it didn't cut it for me. I thought the film was unnecessarily dark.
Yeah,
I just mean the visuals. Visually, it was a dark looking film, and I think she could have trimmed some scenes to make them a little more succinct throughout the film. Other than that, it's made up for by the performance of Dom DeLuise.
Absolutely.
A classic opening sequence, which was just beautifully done. And here's the other thing. Dom didn't look that fat, did he? I mean,
not then. He got a lot fatter later.
He did later, but at this point, I think he looks maybe 20, 25 pounds overweight at best.
Right.
He didn't look all that heavy to me.
Right.
Or have we just changed, my friend? I don't know.
Well, I guess our tolerance level has changed over the years. We've, there's a lot of body shaming issues that people are dealing with today too. So we don't want to say, "Hey, you're fat," but hey, I'm fat.
Well, rather than compare physiques, let's go to my next pick, which is from 1974, a film that has a very special thing about it that people don't remember, and people certainly don't remember the film because I don't think many people saw it even when it was new. It's called Harry and Tonto, Paul Mazursky dramedy, I'll call it, from 74. Did you know, folks, that Art Carney, and I mentioned this on the show before, won the Academy Award for Best Actor in that year for his performance in this film, where he plays a senior who's thrown out of his apartment in New York and just decides to go off on his own with his cat Tonto. And I will say, it is a masterful performance for Art Carney, who showed the rest of the world he definitely can act. He wasn't just Ed Norton. But there's the funny part about Art Carney's career. He was an esteemed Broadway actor long before Ed Norton. He did The Odd Couple on Broadway with Walter Matthau and Jack Klugman, and he's a fine actor. And if you ever want to be stunned at his acting brilliance, find him in the Twilight Zone's episode called Night of the Meek, where he plays a department store Santa who's a drunk, and how he is saved by the power of Christmas. I don't know how to put it otherwise. Art Carney is a brilliant actor. He's funny in this film. This is not a fall down hold your sides type of comedy. It's more of a whimsical look at this old man's travels as he ends up going all over the country with Tonto. And it's got a little sadness mixed in. It's still a tour de force performance. He beat out a lot of popular actors of his day that year, and it's one of the great upsets in Oscar history. And it is available on DVD to this day. I got it for like $5 on Amazon. I did see it streaming on a really oddball app. Here's what you do. If you have a Roku box out there, type in the name of the film and it will tell you what streaming app is available on. It is available to see for free on this weirdo, like Movie Magic, it's called or something. I don't even remember what it was, but you can find it if you look for it, and you can definitely find it on DVD from Amazon. It's a good film. Have you ever seen it, John?
I've seen portions of it over the years on television, but I don't believe I've sat and watched it from beginning to end. And by the way, if you type into the search engine on Amazon, it does the same thing. It'll tell you where the film is streaming and who owns it and that sort of thing. So try them all, but sometimes they're not accurate. Like you had told me something was available on Tubi, and I went to Tubi and it wasn't there. So
well, there's the thing. I'm finding out that Tubi is like a lot of the others in that they have only a window of time when they purchase the rights to show it, and then they take it off again.
Right.
And they're doing that now, like everybody else is. Other streaming services have public domain stuff which stays there forever. Right. Unfortunately, Tubi, they even threw some Three Stooges movies off there, which pissed me off. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. But anyway,
some of these streamers have commercials, some of them don't.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a crapshoot, but it's always worth a shot to search for it. And if you don't find it, then you have to rent it. You're still gonna get to see a good film. So,
and I will say, between Tubi and Pluto, two free streamers, there's a lot of cool stuff there. Yeah. I mean, and the price is definitely right, and usually the resolution of the films is quite good. So I recommend them wholeheartedly. John, give me another one.
This film was actually the world's biggest non-US box office hit during its release, but then it wasn't that big a hit in the States, and it kind of petered off and disappeared, even though they made a couple of sequels to it. And this film was made in 1982. It's called The Gods Must Be Crazy, which it does say that it streams on Plex and Tubi, or you can rent or purchase it on Amazon. I mean, I just fell in love with the premise. It stars a little guy. He's a bushman. An actual bushman played the part, was not an actor before this film. And the Bushmen of the Kalahari are tiny people, but they live an isolated life away from the rest of the world. They very rarely see other human beings. And it's a very gentle, kind, and calm community of people. They share. They aren't stuck with the trappings of the so-called socialized world. And they just really work to help each other. Wouldn't that be nice to see others do that? But anyway, the Bushman, this guy's name is Z, spelled X-I. One day, somebody from a civilized city flies over them in a small airplane and throws a Coke bottle out the window. So now this Coke bottle lands in the middle of this community of Bushmen in the middle of the Kalahari. They've never seen anything like this. There's no stones where they live. It's basically the Kalahari is a desert. So they've never seen anything like this. It's harder than anything they've ever seen. It's shiny and smooth. And they believe that it's a gift from the gods. And they use the Coke bottle to do lots of things. They crush food with it. They use it to print on things. They use it to tan snake skins to make into other objects. But there's only one of these things. So all of a sudden, this object that they've never had, never depended on before, never seen before, becomes an object of desire. So the others in the community all want to try at this thing. So now they've got envy, and they've got jealousy, and they've got greed. For the first time, they realize that this thing maybe didn't come from the gods. Maybe it's an evil object. And Z decides that he's going to try to send it back to wherever it came from. And to do that, he's going to take a long walking journey to the edge of the world, and he's going to throw it off. And that way they won't be bothered with this evil device anymore. So that's the plot. That's the film. But it is filled with slapstick like the Keystone Cops. It's filled with silly chase scenes. It's filled with elaborate sight gags. There's just a lot of craziness. And of course, wherever he goes, he's like a fish out of water. So his behavior when he sees machines for the first time and vehicles and white people, his reactions are very funny. And again, this is not it's funny. It is a laugh a minute in a way, but it is a very poignant film because it does kind of talk about, the downside of technology and the downside of civilization. So without giving too much of it away, there's another guy there who is a scientist. A woman is introduced to the story. She decides that she's going to leave civilization and she wants to teach in Africa. And the scientist meets the woman, and he's very awkward, and that leads to some very funny things. And there are these crazy revolutionaries that are fighting the government, and they're introduced. So there's a lot of chase scenes with them, and it's definitely worthwhile, even if you have to rent it or buy it. There's lots of laughs, lots of beautiful scenery, as you can imagine, in Botswana, which is one of the most beautiful portions of Africa. And then the interaction, the players are very funny, what they do and how they interact with each other, and the scenarios that they get themselves into are just very, very funny. It's very well written, very well filmed, and very well thought out from beginning to end. So,
well, this one is kind of a controversial choice on your part because, first of all, it did do box office here. It was not a bomb. In New York and Los Angeles, it kicked ass. It did about $30 million in that era, which was decent money.
Right.
Unfortunately,
then it disappeared.
Well, it disappeared because of accusations of racism by several critics.
Oh.
And they found it to be the stereotypical depiction of Africans in general, for lack of a better term. Now, that's all in the Isle of the Beholder.
Right.
They did go on to make sequels to this film,
right,
which also played in the United States. I don't know how well they did or whatnot. I did remember seeing it on television, probably cable, after it had come out. But it was a worldwide smash. I mean, the thing went bananas all over the world. And I think it was filmed on pretty much a shoestring budget, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I would argue with the racist accusations from these critics. I don't think they were looking deep enough. First of all, the Bushman was a real Bushman, so he was pretty much the star of the film. He's and without giving too much away with the plot, he ends up saving the day in the long run, and he goes back to his quiet existence because that's who he was. That's who he went back to, his family and his community. I don't understand where these charges of racism really come from, except that maybe, if you go back to jungle movies of the 30s and 40s and 50s here, that, we showed a lot of African natives in a less than positive light. But I don't think this one does that at all.
I think, and again, I am no expert on this film, and I think from what I read in the past, it was a couple lines of dialogue that set some people off, as said by the white people in the film. So I can't speak for it. It's been so many decades since I saw it. I'm not even going to give an opinion. We're just trying to figure out what happened to it. Like John said, it disappeared. It just got out of the way real fast. So I don't know if that was a contributing factor, but in any event, a lot of people call it a comedy classic.
I certainly do.
There you go. I have one more on our list here. A cheap... This is the lowest budget film on my list. It is a thrown together mess that I laugh at hysterically, only because I had recorded it years ago. I don't know where you can find this now. I think it's available because it's John Candy. And the film is called Going Berserk from 1983. I think that was either right after or about the time the SCTV was going off the air at that point. It's never listed among Candy's best film, but this low-budget comedy is still worth seeking for some real belly laughs and great gags. It's sort of like Caddyshack in that nobody would ever call Caddyshack a great cinematic achievement, but people still love it because of the jokes. This is a lot like that. Candy plays a limo driver who's hypnotized by a cult to kill the father of his wife to be, and the adventures he runs into en route to his wedding. Now that sounds dark. I promise you, it's not. David Steinberg directed this film.
Yeah.
And it also shows fellow SCTV cast members Eugene Levy and Joe Flaherty. It's got some hilarious sight gags. Candy being Candy. There's this hilarious bit where he's handcuffed to a convict and how they get out of that situation, including one amorous hookup that the convict has while he's still handcuffed to John Candy. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's short. It's sloppy. It's goofy. It's great. It's Going Berserk from 1983. It's one of my favorite John Candy films. I don't care. I laugh like a hyena every time I watch it.
I think I probably have dipped in and out of that one on cable many, many years ago.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty big on cable for a long time. HBO and Cinemax and that kind of stuff. And I think that's where I saw it, and I became an instant fan of it because, it's overacting wildly throughout. It's just dumb. But you know what? Every so often you need a moment to take 90 minutes, shut your brain off, and laugh at something really goofy. And this is one goofy film. John Candy was a brilliant comic actor, and he should still be with us, man. That was a great loss. Do you have one more, or did we finish up? I'm a bad counter.
I have one more that we both saw together. We were in a hotel room somewhere. We just decided instead of going out that we would stay in and rent a film on the in the hotel's system. You guys, I think we had separate rooms, but we were all together to watch this film. I think maybe we were in Chicago or something. I don't remember, but anyway, the film is called Hamlet 2. Bob said, "This just sounds hilarious. We got to watch it." So we did, and it turned out to be very funny.
Oh, I remember this now. Okay.
Yeah. It is streaming on Max, and it's available for rent on Amazon. It stars the wonderful Steve Coogan, who is a kind of washed-up actor who finds himself teaching high school drama, but he's not a very good actor, and he knows it. His kids aren't very good at what they do. The schools are getting rid of arts programs left and right. And he decides that he's been told that this is his last year. So he decides he's going to go out with a bang and try to do something meaningful. He's been doing stagings of popular films instead of, real drama. So he buckles down and finishes writing the play. It is one of the most offensive things that you will ever see on stage, but he decides that he's going to do it. He gets stuck with a bunch of kind of rowdy teenagers because the classrooms where these kids were supposed to be had asbestos, so he ended up with a lot of kids. He usually only gets 3 or 4 in the program, and now he's got about 20. And so he writes this script. First of all, in Hamlet, everybody dies at the end, so he figures out a way to bring back the characters that are dead is to incorporate a time machine. So, but he also incorporates more than just characters from Hamlet. He puts Jesus in there too, and introduces Jesus to some of the characters in Hamlet through this time machine portal idea. And it's got, like I said, it's got offensive situations. It's a musical too. So he's written some songs that are very first of all, "Rock Me Sexy Jesus" is like the showstopper song, and Jesus is very sexualized. He's wearing blue jeans and a wife beater tank top t-shirt. He's kind of bi-curious, I guess you would say. So everything that you could think to offend parents of teenage kids he's put into this play. So when, of course, the principal finds out about it, he says, "You're never putting on this play here," and kicks him out of the school. But the kids really want to do this. They've gotten to know the play. They like it. And they find an alternative venue. The play itself is just hilarious. You have to see it to believe it. I won't tell you anymore because it will spoil a lot of it. But it does end on an up note. So it's
a comedy. So
it's a comedy, and it's really hilarious. It's worth a shot.
As you talk about it, I remember seeing it. I think I was sitting on the edge of the bed because I didn't have a good vantage point, and not on the edge, but like sitting on the floor looking up at the TV. And I remember going, this is out there. This one is way out there.
Yeah.
But it also taught me what a great comic actor Steve Coogan is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's really funny. He's gone on to do a lot of things that were equally as funny. And it was my first time ever seeing the guy.
Right.
Different and hysterical, and I was embarrassed to be laughing at some of the things I was laughing at because it was just it's beyond parody into an area that I can't even describe. It's a very unique film.
Yes, absolutely. And somebody had to write all that music for it, which is kind of shocking too. But
didn't he write a lot of it himself?
Yeah, I don't know. I should look into it. But
yeah, I believe that is the case. But there you go. Those are 10 comedies I'll bet a lot of you haven't seen. I'm interested if you would write to us at outdatedent at gmail.com. If you've seen any of these, give us your opinion of these films. And if there's some comedies out there that you think are also underrated or underseen, let us know what they are. Maybe we can discuss them on a future show. This is a Saturday night as we record this, folks, or it's heading towards Saturday night. It's 5:00 in the afternoon. It's raining cats and dogs here. What better way to survive an evening like this, where we're all cooped up inside? Pop in a DVD or find an obscure comedy that you can watch and enjoy. Or just flip on the Stooges. Life is short. Get your laughs when you can get them, right, John?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, with everything going on in the world today, you need laughs more than ever, I think, just to get through to the next day.
No, it's really true. And, I'm finding like everything is so stressful these days. Something will creep up on me and I'll laugh out loud. Like I'll be somewhere or see something or hear something and laugh. And I don't think laughter ever felt as good as it feels right now. So it's important that we all get our yucks in there because it's, no matter what's going on around us, we still are the masters of our own destinies. And I say, laugh your days away, my friend. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And keep your good friends. John and I have known each other since the early 80s. We've kept in touch all this time. We've gotten together as often as we could. And it's good to see you again, my friend. Is there any way the fine folks here can get a hold of you to say hi or find your work somewhere or anything like you'd like to talk about?
If somebody would like to email me at jonpine@comcast.net, that's JONPINE. I'll be happy to talk to anybody that just wants to shoot about movies or comedies or films. We have a fun film festival coming up in a couple of weeks here in Vero Beach that's growing every year, and that's always exciting. I used to be one of the screeners for the films to help pick the ones that they would show at the festival. I've been a little too busy to do that lately, but I have some good friends who have made films that are in the festival, so that's fun.
Well, John here is a modest guy. Throughout the years I've known him, he has become a music promoter for a while. Am I right?
That's
you
true.
You used to be the proprietor of the Treasure Coast Blues Festival for 5 straight years, as I recall.
Yep.
You went in to have some stars work under your auspices, like Roger McGuinn in a small theater, as I recall.
Right.
And other artists as well.
Robin Ford, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you were the real deal in entertainment in your region. And how do you feel looking back at those days of working kind of behind the scenes as an entertainment person? Was it worth it? Was it a good time? Are you glad you did it?
I'm glad I did it. It was a lot of fun doing it. I learned a lot of things. Unfortunately, I didn't have deep enough pockets to keep the promoting concerts thing going because they're tough. They're tough. You have to work them out so that they're in the right venue on the right night, that people are able to come and see it, that you're not competing with 9 other things on the same day. And then the cost of getting some of these entertainers was a little bit expensive, but the venue that I used for Roger McGuinn and Robin Ford later on also had David Crosby. So you had half the Byrds have performed there. But anyway, yeah, it was interesting to meet Roger McGuinn because he is a true legend. I think he's still performing. He lives in Florida.
Absolutely.
So,
he has a show coming up here in the New York metro area. I just saw hype.
He just travels around with his wife, Camille, and loads the van, and he does solo act show. And watching one of his shows is like getting an education in folk music, the early stages of folk music. And of course, he is one of the very first to actually create a whole new genre, which is folk rock. And so he's a real historical figure. legend, I would say, an American legend. He's probably in his upper 80s, so he's not going to be touring forever. I would say get out to see him if you haven't. He's very well versed. His voice is still great. His collection of songs that he sings is great.
Get out to see any of your classic artists while they're still with us. About 3 weeks ago, I saw Burton Cummings and his current band. Exceeded expectations tenfold, and I've seen him a lot. This show was probably the best I've ever seen him as a solo artist. And he's 77 years old. I'm serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
He played the legendary Westbury Music Fair, which you're familiar with. And I'm telling you, his band is spectacular, all seasoned veteran players, but they all still had a youthful countenance about them. And what surprises, I invited 3 different people to come to this show, and they all showed up. And I said, look, and they all go, Burton Cummings? I go, listen, when you sit down, you will know every song but 3. Right. They knew every song but 3 because he had his solo hits, his hits with the Guess Who, did a couple of covers that people knew.
Right.
I mean, it works. It just works like gangbusters. And he's still got whatever it is. And I'm happy that I invited new people to see somebody who turned out to be really great. So
there's talk about him going back out as the Guess Who again.
It's happening. I just read a headline for you. We did a Guess Who show with Mark Doble, as you remember, the fans here. I just read a headline that they're looking at 2026 to become the Guess Who again somehow.
That'd be awesome.
I can imagine that it would be Cummings' band with Bachman sitting in, because I think the other Guess Who members are too old to do it anymore. That would be great, because the band that Cummings uses is known in Toronto as the Carpet Frogs, and they're awesome. The bass player was the original bass player, Rush. Other veteran players are in the band as well, and they have a young guy from Long Island on second guitar who was spectacular that night. So, awesome. You know what? If the vibe is there, the music is good.
Yeah.
Listen, it's not like Cummings didn't lose a step, but I heard that a friend of mine went to the Sphere in Vegas and saw the Eagles. He said Don Henley's voice was cracking. So listen, they're old now, guys. You have to take the good with the bad, but everything's got to be better than the show I saw at Westbury years ago of late period Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley.
Oh God,
the sloppiest, most unprofessional thing I've ever seen, and yet the crowd went ape because it was their old favorite songs from when they were kids. Right. There's a spot for that as long as it's the original artist.
Yeah, and anything to me is better than these tribute bands. I mean, even if they're perfect and great musicians, I don't want to sit and listen to them mimic an album. I would rather see artists being artistic and performing, even if it's songs I've never heard before, especially if it's songs I've never heard before.
You hit a bugaboo with me. It's bad enough that they'll do somebody else's work. That's, that's fine. That's tribute bands and cover bands. They're always going to be on the scene. But the fact that they go out to look like them, act like them, I don't get it. If I want to see Fleetwood Mac, I'll put on a tape of Fleetwood Mac or a video of them, or I'll put on one of their albums. I don't want to see Bethany Peterson as Stevie Nicks. It doesn't do it for me. And you know what? Some of these tribute acts are playing nationally now. People are, they've developed cult followings, particularly the Pink Floyd ones, because it's all visual.
Right.
And I say, not for me. Give me the real thing. It's just the way I am. I don't even like the concept of tribute band. I'm sorry. I'm probably offending anybody here under the age of 45 at this point, but I despise tribute bands. I have no use for them.
And they're commanding top dollar for tickets too. It's not like you're getting a bargain and I got nothing better to do tonight. I'll go hang out and listen to this for a while. And if I get sick of it, I'll leave. No, it's 80, 90, $100 a ticket for these tribute bands. And not for me. Sorry.
And I'll tell you what, this is why I give more props to people like Pete Mancini. And I tried to do the same thing myself decades ago. Pete Mancini, the Americana artist who had on one of our early shows, he's out doing his own music, and that's it. And you know how hard it is to get booked when you do your own music and you're coming out of an area where it's not Manhattan, it's not Los Angeles or something like that. But he's sticking to his guns, and he just made a new album, American Equator, that's spectacular. Best work of his career so far. And he's doing it his own way. He's refusing to get hooked up with Spotify and these other people who rip musicians off, and he's selling it directly through Bandcamp and stuff like that. and he's doing great. And the music's spectacular, and he's getting written up all over the country. So I say, get out there, support your independent original music artists.
Right.
They're the ones that really need, and you might find something new that you find good. And this is another problem, I think, with American pop music fans. They tend to stop after college. Their musical sensibilities ends when they get a job in the real world, and they only listen backwards instead of current. There is a lot of fine original music still being made in blues, in Americana, in jazz, even in pop, that isn't the pablum you hear on the radio today. That's my 2 cents.
That's why I used to love my satellite radio subscription, because you could check out all this new stuff that nobody's ever heard before. And I can tell I probably bought 50 albums just because I heard something that was interesting on a satellite radio station as I was driving somewhere, and that's the way to do it.
And you knew me when I was on the road. You knew me when I was a musician. I will say this: it's never been harder than it is right now for a musician to tour and make money. You can make records. I read somewhere that if you get 1 million plays on Spotify, you make $7,000.
Wow.
How in the world? I made more money in the day than these kids are making now doing the same thing.
Right.
So I say to our audience out there who is older, if there are younger artists or new artists that you're fond of, buy their music. Just don't say, "Hey, Alexa, play whatever."
Right.
Try to give them $1 or $2. Try to buy the MP3s if you still can. Buy a CD. I just bought a CD at Pete's. I am not going to turn on Spotify to hear his music, and he's not allowing them to be on there on top of it. But there's good new music, and life is short.
Right.
Do what we used to do when we were kids. Remember, we used to sit home and flip the FM dial to find something we'd like, and then you'd find something new, and you'd go, "Oh wow!" Right?
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
I used to love Woodstock's music station in the town of Woodstock, upstate New York, because they would play all kinds of everything, classical music to alternative, everything. Everything was on that station.
Well, do you remember WRPI from the College of Rensselaer?
Oh yeah.
And they had an amazing FM station there. They would play stuff you would never hear anywhere else.
Right.
So, folks, discover new things and discover old comedies, and come back again on a future edition of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. But for now, thank you, Jon Pine. This has been a blast. Hola.
I had a lot of fun. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Hope to see you soon in real time. Please.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we've been in the same room together. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, probably be coming up your way in the next 3 to 4 months, some late summer.
He's warned me.
I will.
All right. Thank you, Jon. Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with the elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've been waiting a long time to do that one. But to me, it was worth the wait because I love the concept of the show, and Jon Pine is just one of a kind. And we hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Write to us, outdatedent@gmail.com. Our website is outdatedentertainment.buzzsprout.com. You can hear all of our shows there. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith that's singing with B.B. King, man. You also find me on X. That's what I call X. You can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. Both the Outdated Entertainment Hour and the Outdated Wrestling Hour are productions of Bob Smith Podcasts. Our next show is going to be another doozy. We're going to go back into the theater world with two great guests that you enjoyed in the past, both on the same show, Adam Baratow and Brian R. Solomon. You can't beat that with a stick. So look for that on our next edition. And for now, my name is Bob Smith. Hope you enjoyed the nostalgia on this one. We will be back soon. hopefully in a couple of weeks. Until then, peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.